In 2007, a Boston endocrinologist named Thomas Travison published a paper that should have made headlines. It didn't. He had access to 30 years of testosterone data on thousands of American men, and the data showed something nobody really wanted to hear. Average male testosterone had dropped, generation over generation, by roughly 25%. Age didn't explain it. Weight didn't explain it. Lifestyle didn't explain it. Something else was going on. 14 years later, a follow-up study in European Urology Focus extended the same drop downward into adolescent and young adult men. Whatever this is, it's still happening. But here's the part nobody connects. The medicine cabinet your grandfather walked past every morning looked nothing like the one in your bathroom today. Working pharmacies in 5 different traditions, on 3 different continents, all stocked 5 specific plants for what they called the collapse of male vitality. And the shelves they came from were quietly emptied somewhere between 1920 and now. So today, a countdown. The 5 plants every ancient pharmacy on Earth used to hand out to men, what the laboratories have actually proven about each one, and the reason these 5 disappeared from the shelves while a multi-billion-dollar testosterone replacement industry was being built right next door. Number 5. Nettle root. Picture an English village around the year 1850. There is an apothecary on the high street, a low timber frame building with hand-blown glass jars lined up behind a wooden counter. An older man walks in. He does not say the word prostate. The word did not really exist yet in common speech. He says he is having trouble passing water and that his legs feel heavy when he climbs the stairs. The apothecary nods, walks to a particular jar and weighs out a measured portion of dried root. Urtica dioica. Not the leaves, which most modern herbalists still confuse it with. The leaves are mostly a kidney tonic. The root is the part that matters here. European physicians had been handing it out for what they called the elder man's complaint since at least the 1400s, possibly earlier. So what does it actually do? The root contains a class of compounds called lignans, which bind directly to a protein in your bloodstream called sex hormone binding globulin. That protein normally locks up a percentage of your testosterone, holding onto it so tightly that your body cannot use it. Nettle root lignans bind that protein first, which means more of your testosterone ends up unbound and biologically active. Safarinejad, 2005. A randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind crossover trial in the Journal of Herbal Pharmacotherapy showed meaningful improvement in prostate symptoms with nettle root extract over 6 months. Smaller trials since have confirmed it. The mechanism is in the textbooks now. Your great-great-grandfather may have walked into a pharmacy and asked for this by name. Today, you would have a hard time finding a doctor who could tell you what it is. But this next one, nobody's grandfather forgot about. Number 4. Fenugreek. Around 1500 BC, somewhere in Thebes, an Egyptian physician was rolling small yellow seeds into a paste with honey and wine. The recipe was written down on what survives today as the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents in existence. The seeds were prescribed for stamina, for recovery from illness, and for what the Egyptians called the strength of the body in men. Trigonella foenum graecum. The Greeks adopted it. The Romans grew it in dedicated rows outside their barracks. Ayurvedic practitioners knew it as methi and stirred it into ghee for new mothers and recovering warriors alike. By the medieval period, almost every monastery garden in Europe had a fenugreek bed somewhere along the south wall. The active compounds are called furostanolic saponins. What they appear to do is interesting. They partially block an enzyme called aromatase, the enzyme that converts your testosterone into estrogen. If you block it partially, more of your testosterone stays as testosterone. Mansouri and colleagues, 2020, published a meta-analysis in phytotherapy research that pooled clinical trials across thousands of male subjects. The pooled finding was a measurable increase in free testosterone and a measurable decrease in estradiol. Not enormous, modest, but consistent across studies. Modest is the right word for fenugreek. Greek physicians never expected miracles from it. They prescribed it inside a broader protocol of food, sleep, and other plant medicines, which is roughly how the modern evidence says it works best. 2 plants in, both real, both useful. But the next one is where the data genuinely stops being modest. Number 3, Shilajit. Somewhere above 11,000 feet in the Himalayan foothills, a sticky brown-black resin oozes out of cracks in the rock during the warm months. It looks like tar. It smells faintly of pine, of bitterness, of mineral. Local people in Nepal, in Bhutan, and in northern India have been collecting it, purifying it, and selling it as medicine across 30 centuries of unbroken practice. Technically not a plant. It is the slow geological compression of ancient plant material trapped between rock layers, fermented and concentrated over millions of years into something biochemically unusual. Ayurvedic tradition treats Shilajit as one of the most important rasayanas in the entire pharmacopoeia, prescribed specifically for sukra, the masculine essence. Tibetan medicine, which inherited a lot of Ayurvedic thinking, classifies it the same way. Now, you've heard a lot of folk claims like that before. Here's why Shilajit is different. Pandit and colleagues, 2016, a randomized clinical trial in the journal Andrologia. Purified Shilajit, 250 milligrams twice daily for 90 days. Healthy male volunteers, mean age 50. Outcome, a 23% increase in total testosterone relative to placebo and a 37% increase in dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate. Both statistically significant, both reproducible, 23%, in 90 days, in a placebo-controlled trial, in a substance that has been growing out of Himalayan rock for as long as humans have been walking under the Himalayas. The active fraction appears to be fulvic acid, combined with a class of compounds called dibenzo-alpha-pyranese, working directly on the testes through a mechanism researchers are still untangling. The Ayurvedic text did not use words like dibenzo-alpha-pyranese. They said the mountains produce a medicine for men. 2,000 years later, it turns out the mountains do. That's the peak. Now we work back toward 2 plants that are nearly as strong, with stories that are honestly more interesting. Number 2, Tongkat Ali. In the lowland rainforests of peninsular Malaysia, there is a spindly understory tree with thin grey bark and bitter roots. It takes about 10 years to grow before the root is mature enough to harvest. Malaysian and Indonesian healers have been digging it up, drying it, and grinding it across roughly 1,000 years of recorded use. The sultans of the Malay Peninsula reportedly kept private stockpiles. The bitterness is so intense that the traditional preparation involves boiling the root chips for hours, sometimes a full day, before the resulting tea is drinkable. Eurycoma longifolia. Here is where this story gets genuinely strange. Starting in the 1980s, the Malaysian government decided that Tongkat Ali was a strategic national asset. They began funding clinical research on it through public laboratories, the way you might fund research into a domestically grown crop. 40 years of state-backed studies later, the active fraction is well understood. It's called eurycomanona, and it acts on the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. That means it sends a signal up to the brain that tells the body to make more testosterone, and it reduces the binding protein that locks testosterone up. In 2013, Talbot and colleagues published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition a trial in moderately stressed adults. Participants were given 200 milligrams of standardized Tongkat Ali extract daily for 4 weeks. The outcome was a 37% increase in salivary testosterone, alongside a significant reduction in cortisol. The cortisol part is interesting too, because cortisol and testosterone fight each other in the bloodstream. Stressed men have lower testosterone, partly because they have higher cortisol. Tongkat appears to pull the lever on both ends. The Malaysian healers who handed this root out for centuries weren't measuring urocominone in milligrams. They were just paying attention to what worked. The lab caught up about 900 years later, and now, the one most of you have probably already heard of. Number 1. Ashwagandha. In the dry plateaus of central India, there grows a small woody shrub with hairy stems, dull green leaves, and small bright red berries. The root smells faintly of a horse, which is exactly how it got its name. Ashwa means horse. Gandha means smell. In Sanskrit, Ashwagandha translates roughly as the smell of a horse, and Ayurvedic tradition held that taking the root would give a man the strength and stamina of one. The plant appears in the Charaka Samhita, one of the founding Ayurvedic texts dating to around the 2nd century BC. It is listed under a category called Rasayana, a class of medicines for restoration in the second half of life. The Sanskrit term used for the specific indication is dhatu kshaya, the wasting of vital tissues, of which sexual vitality and physical strength were the primary categories. Western pharmacology rediscovered the plant in the 1940s and called the effect adaptogenic, a word coined by Soviet researcher Nikolai Lazarev to describe substances that help the body resist stress without overstimulating it. New word, ancient indication. The clinical evidence is genuinely strong. Lopresti and colleagues, 2019, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial in aging, overweight men. 600 milligrams of standardized root extract daily for 16 weeks. The outcome was a 14.5% increase in serum testosterone in the ashwagandha group, compared to a small decline in the placebo group. Wankede 2015, a separate trial in men starting a resistance training program, showed a comparable testosterone elevation alongside greater muscle mass gain and improved recovery between sessions. Multiple other trials have replicated the broader finding. So the question is, if 5 different traditions on 3 different continents, working in isolation across thousands of years, all arrived at substantially the same answer, and modern clinical trials now confirm that answer in placebo-controlled data, why is none of this in the family doctor's office? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is an economic incentive structure. A new molecule synthesized in a laboratory can be patented. That patent gives the pharmaceutical company a 20-year window of monopoly pricing, during which they can recover the $300 million in trial costs that the FDA approval process now requires. A root that has been growing in Malaysia for 10 million years cannot be patented. Nobody owns the molecule. The clinical trials we do have on these 5 plants, funded by national governments and university grants and the occasional private donor, show that they work. The trials are small because no commercial sponsor has reason to fund the larger ones. The plants kept working. The funding went elsewhere. The result, 2 generations later, is a population of men with measurably lower testosterone than their grandfathers, a multi-billion-dollar testosterone replacement industry built around treating the consequences, and 5 plants in roughly the same places they always grew. Tongkat in the Malaysian rainforest, ashwagandha across India and parts of the Mediterranean, Fenugreek in nearly every Indian and Middle Eastern home garden, Shilajit seeping from the same Himalayan rock formations it has for 3,000 years, Nettle root in roughly every temperate hedgerow on Earth, including, almost certainly, somewhere within a mile of where you are sitting right now. The shelves still hold what they always held. What changed is who is looking. If you found any of this useful, subscribe to the channel. We rebuild one shelf at a time. Hit the bell so the next upload arrives without you having to come looking for it. And if any of these names sounded familiar, If your grandmother or your father or some old neighbor used to keep a jar of one of these somewhere in the kitchen, leave the story in the comments. That's how this knowledge stayed alive the first time around. Word of mouth between people who paid attention.